I think if you start to look at each individual problem with the statement, then you're not going to be
me as well as to the rest of the committee itself. Now, let me ask you, following up on what Senator Specter has just said, and Senator Specter and all of us acknowledge that there is a need to understand the nature of sexual harassment and the way in which people respond to that harassment. And one of the things that you have repeatedly said here, and you have said publicly prior to coming here, is that this was not your idea. You did not want to come here. You have stated, and it appears to be so, that you are a reluctant witness, not one who was out charging down the road. And as Senator Specter acknowledged, and every expert in the field acknowledges, that is not conduct that was inconsistent with whether or not someone was harassed. Now let me ask you this though, because I'm sure a lot of people, including me, are wondering about it. You indicated, and it's totally understandable, that you repressed a lot. And again, with every expert over the years whom I've spoken about this subject, not about you, not about this incident, but about the nature and the conduct of harassment and the respondents, the person harassed, how they respond, that's not at all an unusual notion, that there is repression. The person represses thinking about it. But what I'd like to ask you about is, notwithstanding that fact, can you lay out for the committee what in fact were the sequence of events that did bring you forward? You and I had a long discussion, when I say long, relatively long discussion, the night that we convinced that the Senate agreed, we meaning the members of the committee, the Senate agreed to withhold the vote on Judge Thomas and put that vote off until this coming Tuesday, if I believe I'm correct, at 6 o'clock. And I called to tell you you'd be receiving a subpoena, and for you not to be alarmed by that when someone knocked at your door. And then you and I had a discussion about the sequence of events that brought you here. You have made reference to that sequence directly and indirectly on this record and off this record, but publicly. Now, this is not something that you initiated. Is that correct?
No, it is not.
And you were contacted by a staff. Her answer was no, it was not initiated by her. And you were contacted by a staff person from the United States Senate. Yes. Is that correct? And you indicated to me you thought that staff person, and it's perfectly understandable you would, in my view, thought that staff person was a staff person from the Judiciary Committee.
Yes.
Is that correct? And then you were contacted subsequently by two other staff persons.
Yes. Well, let me clarify. Please, that. I thought that staff person was acting on behalf of a member of the committee.
I see.
With regard to their duties on the committee.
I see. Which is what I understand to be the case,
yes.
Legitimately so. But as we talk, I had indicated to you that the committee, be more precise, me, and in terms of my responsibility as chairman to make known the allegations to the committee as a whole, did not occur until after the committee had begun its meeting. No reason, that's not your responsibility, that's mine, but I just, and what I want to get at is this, not who spoke to you first and second and third and all of that. I want to get at this issue because it seems to me it does go to the question of, it does go to explain your assertions here this morning as to how you got here. What was the final thing that made you decide that you must go public knowing that all this would occur?
Well, I was presented with the information by a newspaper reporter.
The information you had submitted to me and I had distributed to the committee.
Yes.
You were presented with that information.
Over the telephone. It was read to me verbatim by a member of the press.
Now, the thing that was read to you verbatim was the statement that you had submitted and asked me to distribute to the committee.
Yes.
Is that correct? So, in your view, you're here as a result of some unexpected events. Definitely. And events that turned out not to be within your control.
Definitely.
And you do not, therefore, or do you consider yourself part of some organized effort to determine whether or not Clarence Thomas should or should not sit on the bench?
No, I had no intention of being here today. None at all. I did not.
In answering very direct questions by Senator Specter, very fair but direct questions, you did not, as you stated here, correct me if I'm wrong, you appear not to have from the outset viewed what was happening to you in terms of your need to have a record to be able to retaliate or to sue or to do anything other than try to stop what was happening, what you allege to be happening from happening. Is that correct?
So that's the Anita Hill testimony during the confirmation process of Clarence Thomas in 1991. I was in college at the time, and I clearly remember those days as that was unfolding. I believed in Anita Hill then. I definitely believe Professor Anita Hill today. I also believe Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and Deborah Ramirez and Julia Westnick, the accusers of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Only one of those three accusers testified, and that happened today, again before the Senate Judiciary Committee, as Anita Hill did 27 years ago. So the topic today, I kind of sort of launching off of this into the topic of this live stream, which is the demise of GOP and whether that's moving us closer to a people's revolution or not. I've talked a lot about the need for a popular people's revolution within the U.S. empire. And, you know, I fluctuate whether I think we're moving closer to it or further away from that potentiality that I think needs to occur for a greater sense of justice and brotherhood in our country. But I will be back in a minute. Sorry, I got to pause here.